not every school is right for every kid. We give choice for every commodity, every consumer commodity, but we assume that there's only one way to educate a kid. Empowering these parents with the ability to pick the school that works for their kid, and as you pointed out a moment ago, sometimes they make a mistake, they send them someplace else until they find the right fit. But when they do, it's magic.
Welcome to the OpEdge, the Gazette's opinion podcast, where we bring you cutting-edge perspectives from Colorado's top newsmakers, columnists, and more. I'm Jimmy Sengenberger, investigative columnist and your host for today's program. I'm joined today by Steve Schuck, a Colorado Springs businessman and civic leader, longtime advocate for educational choice, and the co-founder of Parents Challenge with his late wife, Joyce Schuck, as we talk about the revolution that is school choice in Colorado and around the country. Steve, welcome to the OpEdge.
Great to be with you, Jimmy. Thank you.
Great to have you. So before we sort of get into the issue substantively, let's talk a little bit about your background and history with this issue of school choice. Why has it been such a burning subject for you that you co-founded Parents Challenge to give, as we'll talk about, parents a better opportunity for their kids, to give their kids the choice that they need for the best quality of education? What has driven you into that project all of these years?
Well, going all the way back, I went to the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, and my first job out of college was as a teacher and a coach, for which I had not been trained. And that introduced me to the world of education from the delivery side. So that started it, and fast forward, fast forward about 20, 25 years, and I became a candidate for governor with really no political background at all. So I'd been involved with some civic initiatives surrounding education, and they were sort of the traditional kind of stuff, raising money for teachers so they could buy materials for their kids, that kind of stuff. And I ran several bond issue campaigns as a civic leader. But I hadn't done anything dealing with so when I became a candidate, I started studying the issues that I would have to address as governor. And when I got to education, I was appalled. I just wasn't fully conscious of the serious failure of the system to educate kids. The large percentage of kids who were not literate, weren't able to read, write, add, and subtract grade level. It was a crisis. It was a tragedy. And so I started studying. Well, as a businessman running for office, I was more interested in what the cause of the problem was, not so much the symptoms. And it became very, very clear very, very quickly, which is something of which I just wasn't conscious. I didn't really pay any attention prior to that time. It was obvious that public education, which accounts for over 90% of the kids at that time, well over 90% of the kids in Colorado, that public education was a monopoly. There was no competition. Money was directed to the provider. The school districts controlled the budgeting. Parents had no control over the funding. So people of means could pick and choose whatever school they wanted for their child, or pick a better location for their home that they would purchase in a neighborhood that had a better school. But lower income families were stuck. And then it was no surprise to me, as I got deeper and deeper into the subject, that the poorest performing schools were in the lowest socioeconomic areas. Well, that too was easily explained. The system sent its poorest performers, meaning teachers, administrators, to schools that were attended by kids whose parents really didn't know how to work the system. They had no power. They really didn't understand. They just played whatever cards were dealt to them. Started doing some studying, and lo and behold, one of my great heroes, Milton Friedman, had proposed a solution. So I studied up on that, and the solution was what we now today call vouchers, but it was essentially school choice. And the basic premise was very, very simple and made all the sense in the world to me. And this is over 40, almost 45 years ago, when he wrote that the quality of public education will improve overnight when you take the same number of dollars that are being spent and given the control of which is given to the system itself, and take the control of those dollars and give them to parents. And overnight, magic will happen. And that made so much sense to me as a fiscal conservative, as a free enterpriser, as an unapologetic capitalist, as a champion of freedom and liberty. I loved the concept because, again, it sort of emancipated and empowered parents, consumers, create a marketplace, make schools compete with each other for the privilege of educating children. And guess what? By definition, the experience of the students themselves will improve overnight by definition, because if the school that a child is attending does not perform as well as parents think it should, or to the level of its competitors, those parents will pick their children up and send them to a school that does.
Let me jump in for a moment, Steve Schuck, and talk a bit about the practical way that we have seen this sort of evolve a little bit in, say, Colorado, where we do have a pretty robust charter school system within school districts across the state. You have the Charter School Institute that is able to, well, charter schools as well. And so that provides more opportunities for parents to make choices. Sure, it's within the public school system, but there are more options than we had in the past. It seems to be, generally speaking, pretty good in terms of providing possibilities for students that may not currently be in the best fit for them at the moment.
Great point, Jimmy, and I agree with you 100%. Very interestingly, there were no charters until Roy Romer sort of introduced them, and Bill Owens really put energy and sort of put gas in that tank and expanded charters to the point that they are now, I can't remember the number, but I think it's 15 or 20% of the students in Colorado attend charter schools. That is one alternative, which is absolutely spectacular. You mentioned my late wife earlier. She was on the board of the Charter School Institute. She was on the board of the League of Charter School, chairman of the board of the League of Charter Schools. So we've been and we started a couple of charter schools. So charters are a great answer. In my world, if I could have what I wanted, every school in Colorado would be a charter, every single one, which simply would allow parents to vote with their feet, vote for what school they thought was best for their child, and let them all compete. So you're absolutely right in your comment that we have more choice than we've had in the past, but we don't have enough choice. In my opinion, we will never have enough choice until every parent has total choice for every one of their children. So I might interject that we tried, we had a bipartisan sponsored legislation exactly 25 years ago in 2000. 2000, yeah, in 2000, so 26 years ago. Um, we passed legislation during Bill Owens' administration. Bill signed it, signed the legislation, which would have given tax credits, basically school choice, to the parents of low income, tax credits that would allow money to be contributed to scholarship granting organizations that would be available to low income families across the state. That legislation
Sure.
was passed, signed, and then attacked through the courts by the teachers union, and so that was rescinded. It ultimately was rescinded by the state supreme court. And in response to that, Alex Cranberg started ACE in Denver, the Alliance for Choice in Education. I started Parents Challenge in Colorado Springs, both of which were privately funded programs with private philanthropic dollars that would provide school choice options to parents to the extent that we could raise private dollars to support them. ACE has got thousands and thousands of kids in their program. We have roughly 450 kids in Parents Challenge. So we're doing with private dollars what some of us think ought to be done with public dollars.
And let's talk about Parents Challenge a little more for a moment because, as I've always understood, your organization provides a full menu of choice. There's no micromanagement for what kind of support you're going to be giving, so long as, or what kind of school, or if it's an after school program, what have you. Talk a little bit about that and why that's so important to give that broad range of choice for parents in deciding how to leverage the support from Parents Challenge. And then also what you ask of the parents in exchange when they participate in the program for their kids.
So, as I said, 26 years ago, my late wife and I, in response to the fact that we had lost the ability to take public dollars that were being spent on individual on the education of individual students, and because it was rescinded, we decided to donate and raise the money necessary to try and help as many kids as we could with private dollars. So we created Parents Challenge, and initially we had about 30 or 40 kids, and I funded it exclusively by Joyce and I did by ourselves. And then over the years, we've expanded our donor base to several hundred people and several hundred donors. And basically, Parents Challenge does two things that are unique in the country, not only unique in Colorado, but across the country. One is what you just described a moment ago. We provide a full menu of options to parents, which means that they can choose to send their child to a traditional public school, charter public, private school, home school, hybrid school, whatever they think is best. And then we adjust the number of dollars that are allocated to each of those students based upon whether they pick a home where it's less expensive, less out of pocket dollars needed to homeschool a child than to send that child to a private school. So we adjust the dollars accordingly. We educate. We're very proud of the fact that Deborah Hendricks, who's been running the program for over 10 years, does a fabulous job of educating the parents. So when they have the power and the resources to make choices, they also have the information to make good choices. So they can choose whatever type of school they want. And the question we get asked most often is if they choose a traditional public school, why would they need money? Well, if you're low income, as you sort of alluded to, use it for activity fees or tutoring or technology. When COVID came in and the federal government, well, various levels of government closed schools, And they told the kids, go to your library or just connect with your school online. Well, we had a whole bunch of our parents who didn't have technology at all. So anyway, back to the point. So parents can use our money if they're in public school. Other kids in public school, they can use it for tutoring, activity fees, technology, transportation to another public school, whatever they think will best contribute to the education of their child. Private schools obviously used for tuition, homeschools used for teaching aids and for curriculum and that type of stuff. And so that's one thing we do. We believe in empowering parents and giving them the dignity and respect to honor whatever choice they think is best for each of their children. Interestingly, we have many instances of families who send different of their children to different types of schools, which is a perfect sort of example of what choice is all about. And another thing we do is explain to parents that if they choose a school or a type of school that doesn't work out for whatever reason, that's why we have erasers. Come back to see us and we'll help you pick another school. So making a mistake is not fatal, which is a concept that is sort of matter of fact to you and us, but to some parents that had their lives controlled by government for so long, it's a new concept to them to be able to have control, make decisions, and not be afraid because they might make the wrong one.
Well, and to that point, Steve, I know people who have been from a public school to a charter school. After a year at a charter school, that wasn't the right fit for their kid, so they moved him to another charter school where the much better, thriving after a few years. So it's all because of that choice. I mean, the Gazette editorialized, I think, last month the following, quote, "Education funding isn't about sustaining brick and mortar schools or bureaucracies, and it's certainly not about ensuring they're all treated equally, as in the schools or the institutions. Bureaucracies aren't people, after all, but kids are. The state should fund students, not systems, with tax dollars following children toward educational opportunities that best fit them." I think that boils it right down, doesn't it?
Couldn't have written it better myself. So let me quickly describe the second thing we do that is absolutely unique. So almost all the other privately funded scholarship organizations across the country, if not all, some of them have changed in the last year or two, but for all practical purposes, all of the other privately funded programs, there are about 50 or 60 comparable to ACE and Parents Challenge across the country, limit, as does ACE, limit the choices to private schools only. And so we are unique in that, again, we empower parents and honor their decision, whatever it might be. And your example describes exactly what we're about. So the second thing we do that is truly unique, nobody in the country does anything even close to it, is we facilitate, we poll our parents in the spring of the year and ask them what subjects they'd like to be mentored in, what subjects bother them, what issues, topics. And they come back and they, some examples are, they come back and say financial literacy, or how to prepare my child for, put him or her on a college track or on a career track, or bullying, or how to protect my kid in the internet, blah, blah, blah. They give us a whole list of those type of subjects, how to handle yourself in a parent-teachers conference, some of our parents are illegal. Many of them aren't educated themselves. So they're totally intimidated by the system. So anyway, so we empower them with new information. So they give us all of this menu uh, of subjects that they want, in which they want to be mentored. We conduct about 45 sessions each year. They're open to the public, provide free dinner, and they're all videotaped. And we bring in experts on the subjects the parents themselves have identified. And usually we have several hundred attendees to each of these sessions. We just had one a week or so ago, and there were almost 400 people there. And again, the public is invited. The focus, Jimmy, the focus is always on the parent and what best prepares the parent to themselves be the best educator of their children. What tools do they need? What information do they need? What introductions? We connect them with all kinds of community resources that help them be better parents. And so it's all parent centric, parent focused. We are in the empowerment business. Our role is to empower parents with choice, with information, with support. It's all about them.
That's fantastic. Steve Schuck, as we look at the current state of K through 12 education, one bright spot has been the federal school choice initiative of President Trump's administration, enacted last year, and now Colorado became, with Governor Polis, the first state to sign on. That was a Democrat-led state to sign on to this tax credit program, which establishes dollar-for-dollar federal tax credit up to $1,700 a year for individuals who donate to scholarship-granting organizations. I would surmise that maybe Parents Challenge would be, in fact, one of those scholarship-granting organizations. But generally speaking, to me, this is a great way to empower individuals to give back to their community and to help provide without reliance upon the government to dispense the education, to help empower parents through these programs by giving themselves and then getting the tax benefit. Talk to us about this program as you see it.
God bless the Trump administration and, in particular, Senator Cruz for passing legislation. It was as part of the big, beautiful bill. There's a provision called EFTC, Education Freedom Tax Credit, and it does generally what you just described, Jimmy. It allows taxpayers to make up to a $1,700 donation to an SGO, scholarship granting organization, like Parents Challenge and ACE and others around the country, and deduct $1,700 from their federal tax bill. So let me make it simple. You can donate up to $1,700 of your tax bill and direct it to an SGO like Parents Challenge and have it cost you absolutely nothing. You take whatever that contribution is off your federal tax bill. There are guidelines and criteria, standards, rules and regulations, et cetera, as you would expect, as there should be. I don't know that we get any credit for it or should get any credit for it, but the EFTC, the tax credit, federal tax credit, is an exact replication of the Parents Challenge model. The money can be used for all the purposes we described earlier that Parents Challenge has been supporting for 26 years. And so it's a game changer. I want to give credit where it's due. Almost as part of the legislation, the governor in each state has to what's called opt in to this program. That's driven by the parliamentarian in the U.S. Senate who said, for whatever reason, that would be a requirement. As you might expect, let's go back. Let me go back a couple of steps, and say we wouldn't be having this discussion, and Milton Friedman would not have had to come up. He wouldn't have been motivated to come up with this concept of school choice if our public schools were performing at the levels they should. And the reason they don't is that because teachers' unions are in control of those unions and they don't want accountability. So there is I'm not talking about teachers. I told you I was a teacher. My son is a public school teacher. Nobody's bigger supporter of teachers than are we. But teachers are not teachers' union. So back to the EFTC. The Democratic Party is essentially the most powerful faction in the Democratic Party is the teachers' union, the NEA and AFT. And so they've made it clear they do not want Democratic blue state governors to opt in. All the red state governors have already opted in, or have indicated their intent to opt in. It can't be done formally quite yet. The rules haven't been established. They will be shortly. And the first blue state governor, and at one time the only blue state governor to opt in, was Jared Polis. And that took enormous political courage, and he deserves an enormous amount of credit. Interestingly, if your governor does not opt in, and therefore the EFT is not operational in your state, does not prevent you from taking advantage of the EFTC and sending $1,700 to an out-of-state SGO. So Governor Polis, to his great credit, said supporting the EFTC, opting in is a no-brainer, because why would I want to encourage Colorado taxpayers to send their $1,700 out of state?
Right. Yeah.
And
he
deserves
perfect sense.
It took enormous political courage. We know, because we're close to it, we know what kind of political price he had to pay to do what was right for the kids. So I want to thank him as often as possible in as many public opportunities as possible, because he did exactly the right thing, not only for the kids of Colorado, but for the country.
Getting low on time now, Steve Schuck, but there are a couple of the things I want to get through real quickly. One is the performance of our traditional public school system right now. And the fact of the matter is that we are not seeing the kind of performance that our Colorado kids deserve without question. School choice, of course, as we're talking about, is the answer to this, so parents can move their children to a better opportunity. But talk to us about how you view the current system. You've already talked about the teachers' unions, which certainly have an undue influence on how it functions. But how are you seeing the performance that underscores why school choice, in your view, is so essential?
Well, again, I want to give credit where it's due to one Jimmy Sengenberger, who has written brilliantly on this very subject, focused primarily on DPS, but across the state. And so I thank you for your leadership. I know you too have taken a beating for a lot of what you've done, but you've done the right thing. And so thank you. So ex-Senator Bill Cadman, who runs our foundation, has put together this report card, and it's available. Anybody all they do is get in touch with us. We'll be glad to send you a copy. So this report card, let me just pull a couple of examples. In DPS, in 2025, only 27 of the African American kids could read and write at grade level. 18% do math at grade level. 25% of the Latino kids and 17 could do, only 25 could read and write, and only 17% could do math at grade level. That's a 80% failure rate. And as you know, I just wrote an article attacking what I think is part of the cause, that being the Board of Education, DPS, and the superintendent. In Colorado Springs.
That column in the Denver Gazette, right? Op-ed. Yeah.
What's that?
Op-ed in the Gazette, yes.
Yes. And
Yep.
when one looks at this report card, which has schools from across the state, the general average is 30, 40, 50% of the kids being able to read, write, add, and subtract grade level. So we have 50, 60, 70, 80, in some cases 80% failure rate. So they're not getting the job done. And typically when they have to face criticism from people like you and me, Jimmy, they say, well, just give us more money and more time, and we'll figure it out. Well, I'm a lot older than you, Jimmy. I've been hearing that for 50 years. And guess what? It hasn't worked yet, and I don't think there's anything going to be any different in the next 50 years. So the answer is not give more money to the current operation. The answer is to inject choice, create a marketplace, put the focus where it belongs, on the students, on parents, not on the systems. I'm agnostic about where kids go to school. I don't care whether they go to public or private, and I don't care which of the publics or privates they attend, including charters. What I care about is that their parents make the choice about what they think is best for their individual children. And when in our world, when parents are empowered, either the system, the providers will meet their needs and satisfy them, or their customers will go someplace else. That's what school choice is all about. Regardless of what choice they make, by definition, it's the right one. If the parents are making it, it's the right one for them.
Let me ask you as we wrap up here, Steve Schuck, talk to us for a moment from your personal experience with Parents Challenge and talking with parents who have benefited from this program, who have gone through it, whose kids have gone through it, who've seen the fruits. What do they tell you? What is that human story that undergirds the program that is Parents Challenge, but big picture that underscores how school choice can bring about tremendous fruits in the real world?
It is hard for me to express for them the life-changing impact that they enjoy as a result of being able to choose the education's best for their children. I mean, we hear stories every day, all day long, about how picking a better school saved their children's lives. It just enriched their lives in ways they had never imagined might be possible. And let me talk about the performance of Parents Challenge kids. At a statewide average of roughly 31% proficiency in reading across the board statewide, Parents Challenge kids score at 85%. In math, it's 22 across the state, 82 for parents challenge kids. So these, in many cases, these are kids who are failing in their old settings, who then find the right settings for themselves and prosper. We have hundreds of stories of that having happened because not every school is right for every kid. I mean, we give choice for every commodity, every consumer commodity, but we assume that there's only one way to educate a kid, and of course it isn't the case. So empowering these parents with the ability to pick the school that works for their kid, and as you pointed out a moment ago, sometimes they make a mistake, they send them someplace else until they find the right fit. But when they do, it's magic. It is truly magic, and it is heartwarming for us who are part of Parents Challenge, and it's equally heartwarming for our donors who make it possible. So thank you for asking.
We've got to leave it there. Steve Schuck, school choice advocate and co-founder of Parents Challenge, thanks so much for joining us on the OpEdge.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thanks for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the OpEdge. If you enjoyed today's episode, please drop us a like, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. For the Gazette, I'm Jimmy Sengenberger.